I'm America first. I live in America. This is my number one priority. I'm raising my kids here. I'm from Iran, I'm Armenian, and I'm Assyrian. But if you tell me what country matters the most, America matters the most.
Patrick Bet David went on the Triggernometry Podcast and talked about the Ben Shapiro drama with Candace Owens and also involving Patrick Bet David versus Ben Shapiro directly. He talked about it all on the Triggernometry Podcast, which is notoriously more pro Ben Shapiro and Ben Shapiro's favorite people. Patrick Bet David just went into the lion's den and absolutely destroyed all of their talking points and everything that they had to say, all of their opinions about the whole Ben Shapiro, Daily Wire versus Candace Owens and versus Patrick Bet David controversy. Let's check out what Patrick Bet David had to say in direct response to the whole conflict with Ben Shapiro.
And I've had Jordan Peterson on. I've had him on 4 or 5 times, many times. Every time you're with Jordan Peterson, you kind of sit there. He's the easiest guy to interview.
Yeah.
He's 4 questions in 2 hours.
Yep.
That's Jordan. You ask, let her rip, right? He's like that. Sailors, like, there's a handful of people that are like that, right? Some people are like 60-second answers, 20-second answers, 40-second answers. He just goes. When all of a sudden you started hearing about, hey, you know, Christ is king, you know, Ben Shapiro in the small setting said what he said about, you know, what she said is not a travesty, but disgrace or something. He used some words like that about Candace in a smaller setting. Now, did he know it's being recorded? I don't know, but you're Ben Shapiro. Yeah, just anybody. At any time you're speaking, you have to know someone's recording you, right? Sometimes we forget. Everybody does. But you just have to know you're being recorded.
By the way, there's no way that he didn't know he was being recorded there. I'm pretty sure what Patrick Bet David is referring to is Ben Shapiro giving a speech on a stage at a college campus. You know, of course you're being recorded, dude. Like that's not an excuse. I don't know where that even came from. I don't think Ben Shapiro used that as an excuse. But Ben Shapiro was asked, you know, what does he think about what Candace Owens had to say? This was before she was officially fired. He said it was a disgrace. And that's crazy because all she said was Christ is king. So
we can talk about anything. Well, you can't question that as one of your talent. Yeah, very obvious. You can't touch the Jewish community, you can't talk about it. And that cost the person the job. Great. That's when I made the comments when I said, the Daily Jewish Wire or the Daily Israeli Wire, I don't know if that's what you're asking about. I publicly said that multiple times. I'm not, you know, apologizing or changing my position. That's my position, what I said. That's where we know what Ben's ultimate is, okay? To me, I'm America first. I live in America. This is my number one priority. I'm raising my kids here. I'm from Iran, I'm Armenian, and I'm Assyrian. But if you tell me what country matters the most, America matters the most. I don't know.
Realize how the immigrants and the people who weren't born here, pretty sure Patrick Bet David wasn't born here, but people who weren't born here appreciate the country a whole lot more than people like Ben Shapiro and the Daily Wire. Also, I've been very critical of Patrick Bet David in the past. He's a businessman, and I don't think there's anything wrong with businessmen. I'm not one of those like, oh, rich people are bad type people. No, I respect immensely the things that he's accomplished, as well as all other people who have built their wealth from the ground up, of course. But when businessmen come into a space such as this one that's obviously surging and the pendulum is swinging back in the other direction, you obviously have to be a little bit skeptical. And I think the right and the conservatives have been very accepting of new people, way too accepting of new people, and have gotten you know, backstabbed because of it. So I'm more like on the weary side, and I've been saying for a while, you have to watch out for people like Patrick Bet David because I don't know for a fact if he's genuine yet. This is making me think that he is 100% genuine because this is not a business decision. This is obvious. This is an obvious negative to his business. Like that's why the Daily Wire is 100% revenue driven. Like that's all they care about. They're not actually America first. They just know saying that they're America first is good for business. They say they're America first and their actions, they basically have their cake and eat it too, because they're able to say they're America first, attract all the bots that all you have to say is you're America first, and you don't actually have to do anything to back that up, and they'll still like you. But then they also go back and they just praise these other countries, and they're so loyal to these other countries. They fire Candace Owens for not being extremely loyal to these other countries, and they get their cake and eat it too. Patrick Bet David is just saying, I don't want that. I don't want that cake. I want America first. Genuine, true America first. And I respect it. So that's, you know, I've been critical of him in the past. Not really critical, just weary, you know, because he is a businessman. And there's a lot of money to be made in this space right now. It's surging for sure. So just weary, but this is definitely putting my mind at ease, like, because this is not a business decision. This is not going to be good for business if he says what he's about to say right here.
If you asked him.
We did.
And what did he tell you?
Well, his argument is there's a couple of pieces to it. Number one, he says that Israel is not something he used to talk about a lot until it happened. Mm-hmm. And I think he sees Israel as an outpost of Western civilization in the Middle East, which I think is a reasonable point. And in terms of the Candace stuff, we didn't talk about that specifically with him. We talked about it with Andrew Clavin. But what Andrew said is that, and what I think is fair to say is this: if you one of the things we talked about with him is if you have a company in which there's an ideological viewpoint, which they have, right? They're a conservative media organization. So, if you
enjoy content like this, make sure you leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It really does help me out a ton. Let's get back to the video.
If Matt Walsh was to come out as pro-trans, they would fire Matt Walsh, is the point, right?
You're comparing Candace Owens saying Christ is king?
He is comparing, not me. But also, it's the words themselves.
No, you said.
I said that's what he said.
He said trans? They used the word specific
we
trans?
talked about this, I think.
But are you, no, this is very important.
Yeah.
It's very technical what you're saying right now.
Yeah.
So did he use the analogy?
No, I brought that up.
That's what I'm saying, if you're saying. So I'm going to isolate that with you, not him, because that's you. Well, go ahead, make your point.
So if the argument is they have a company ideology, they're a conservative organization. Sure. That's what Clayton was talking about. So if one of their presenters, one of their hosts came out and said, I'm pro-trans or I'm pro-abortion or whatever, that person wouldn't continue to work.
Does this guy not think through what he's saying right now? This is nutty. This is nuts what he's saying. He's saying that Daily Wire is a conservative company, which is fine, I guess. I mean, I don't necessarily know if they reflect I think they're more like a neocon organization and a company that is basically predatory towards boomer conservatives. In my opinion, they're more of like a Fox News type thing where they lie to their audience and just try to, feed them the information that they want to hear in order to drive revenue, in my opinion. But this guy, I think his name's Constantine, he's basically saying that Matt Walsh coming out as pro-trans is the same thing as Candace Owens coming out pro-Christian. That's what he's saying here. He's saying that if Matt Walsh came out and he was pro-trans, he would get fired. And it's the same thing as Candace Owens coming out and saying Christ is king, which is basically being pro-Christian. And look, I know everybody always says, whenever I say this, that Christ is king is not a pro-Christian thing. It's every religion or most religions think that Christ is king. No, they don't. If they thought Christ was king, they would be Christian. They wouldn't be Muslim or they wouldn't be Jewish. Come on, let's be real. They don't think, when Christians say Christ is king, they mean King of Kings, that they don't think Christ is King of Kings, or else they would be Christian and they would worship Christ. I think it's Muhammad, right? That Muslims worship, that they think is God. They don't think Jesus Christ is God, which I guess some Christians don't think Jesus Christ is God either. I don't want to get into like a theocritical, whatever the hell you would say, debate with myself here. Basically, the main point that I want to take away from this is the fact that he compared Matt Walsh being trans being pro-trans to Candace Owens being pro-Christian. That's wild. That's a wild statement, and that's what they truly think. That's a Freudian slip. Don't get it twisted. That's a Freudian slip. That's what they truly think.
Tell you why. So I don't remember the exact wording that Andrew used. We have an episode coming out about that before this one, so people can go and watch what he said. But it was something along the lines of, I'm not saying she's deeply anti-Semitic in her heart, but some of the things that she was saying either encourage people to be that way or something along those lines, right? So in other words, from the Daily Wire's perspective, this is a misalignment with the core values of their organization, right? In the same way that being pro-trans or pro-abortion might be. That's their argument.
That's your opinion, or you're not, because you said
that is my recollection of the conversation we had with Andrew.
Because when I say I think, that's kind of my opinion. So then I can rebuttal to your opinion on what you're saying instead of his. But I mean, listen, to be fair to Ben came out and said, we're a publisher. We're not a platform.
Right.
He's 100% right.
Yeah.
Of course you're a publisher. He said, we don't have to keep people here if we don't want to. Totally get it. But that position isn't necessarily an anti-conservative position, one would never say Candace is not conservative.
Yeah.
Candace is a conservative.
Yeah.
One would never say Candace is anti-freedom of speech, low taxes, small government. Candace is all conservative. No, and I believe right now, the last 4 years, it's been a kind of little bit of a weird climate.
Patrick, may I interrupt? I just thought of something else that may be helpful here as well, right? I think part of it is also there are people at the Daily Wire like Matt Walsh, who we just mentioned, who is anti the United States giving support to anybody, including Israel, including Ukraine, including everybody, who has no problem remaining at the Daily Wire. So I think the issue is the perception of anti-Semitism.
Yeah, sure. No, right? That's a fair point.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I'm glad you did. So that's a fair point you're making with the position he's in. I think he does a great job, by the way. I think he's got his own unique way of communicating.
He does, yeah. I like Matt Walsh as well. But if you watch, I've done multiple videos on it. If you watch the backstages that the Daily Wire does, where Ben Shapiro, Jeremy Boring, Andrew Klavan, Matt Walsh, Michael Knowles, they're all talking, and Candace Owens used to be involved as well. Obviously not anymore. Matt Walsh very much submits to Ben Shapiro's opinions. Every time Matt Walsh tries to get an opinion out, Ben Shapiro cuts him off, or Jeremy Boring cuts him off, because they know his opinion is not the right one for the Daily Wire. And I think Ben Shapiro and Matt Walsh are probably pretty close friends, and they don't want to fire Matt Walsh. They probably don't want to. So they cut him off every time he tries to get an opinion out there. And Matt Walsh kind of submits to it, and he's like, yeah, that's probably the right decision, so I can keep making this money. Whereas Candace Owens was like, no, I can't stay quiet on this anymore. I understand it's going to be a pay cut, but it has to be done, or I'm going to be eaten up alive by my own thoughts. I have to get this out there. I have to speak on this.
No. Look, Ben has made it clear one topic, but the market's never known this, that you can't question that. It's not like it's in the bylaws. If you work here, you can't make a comment about Israel or questioning Netanyahu or any of this stuff.
I don't think that's what it was, because Matt Walsh is still there, right?
But I get that, but Matt Walsh didn't question it at the levels that she did. Matt Walsh didn't go out there and say, going against Shmuley and some of these other guys, having the debate that she was having and calling them out. And she was probably a little bit more vocal and antagonistic, but that's her style. When you have you talk about sports earlier, certain like Golden State Warriors, Draymond Green, you're either going to protect Draymond Green or you're not. You're either going to defend Conor McGregor, your name is Dana White, or you're not. You're either going to defend Dennis Rodman or you're not. Not everybody can handle players like this. It requires a certain level of coach to know how to work with a Rodman, a Conor McGregor, or a Draymond Green. They're not easy because they're in a way they view things in chaotic stuff here, and the creative juices are going all the time. But they may have an element of they're a diva. Yeah, maybe, but that comes with the territory. They also get a lot of eyeballs. They also have a very loyal following. They also have a lot of that stuff going on.
Do you think about it like a coach?
Well, you're a CEO, chief executive officer. Dana is a chief executive officer. Yes, that's the job of a CEO. So what you're saying is you can't handle somebody that is creative at that level.
I guess it's either, that's a decent way of looking at it. I just don't think that Ben Shapiro and Patrick Bet-David view their companies in the same way. Ben Shapiro views his company, I don't think he thinks of it as, Candace needs to be reeled in so that we can keep her on. I think he just saw Candace Owens was probably making his investors angry and said, we need to get rid of this person because my investors are mad. I don't think Ben Shapiro is thinking of this as how can we put together a team that's going to have the hard discussions that need to be had in order to save our country. He's thinking of it as, is this making me money or is this not making me money? And if it's not making me money, then it has to be cut off. I think that's how he's thinking of it. Let me know in the comments what you're thinking about Patrick Bet-David addressing the Daily Wire conflict directly head on. And I think he did it in a great way, in my opinion. Let me know what you thought of Patrick Bet-David's response to the whole Ben Shapiro versus Candace Owens situation.